Some people dream of diving for treasure, while other, more sane people worry about the horrible monsters that might be living down in the ocean. Hey people, voice talking to you, and this is Tides of Tethys, an underwater RTS roguelike where we lead an order of knights on deadly expeditions into an alien ocean. If you'd like to check this game out for yourself or download the demo, there's a link for you down in the description, and right next to that is a link to my full playthrough stream just in case you want to see some more gameplay and my first impressions. The noble houses of Tethys have ensured their people's survival for generations, which is impressive considering the planet they live on seems to be entirely underwater. After thousands of years of fruitless, bloody wars, the noble houses have completely exhausted the resources found at their depths. Desperate for survival, they get the band back together and forged an expeditionary force to be sent into the depths. Their goal is to seek out new resources and scavenge forgotten technology left behind by battles long past. Many volunteers jump at the chance for adventure and the promise of riches, but none of them are aware of the monstrous horrors and lethal conditions waiting for them in the darkness of the trenches. And once they join, they can never quit. These explorers are called knights, and they're a bit like helldivers when you think about it. Overall, that's a really intriguing backstory and an awesome concept for a game. Intro and initial world building aside, though, I didn't get to see any progression of the narrative or the player's impact on that story. The demo consisted of a tutorial and one standard level, so overall it was pretty short. I'm hoping the devs are planning to incorporate some sort of campaign mode or maybe story elements the player can discover on their own as they explore the depths. Artistically though, this game is the whole package. The music is great, the visuals and the color palette are just breathtaking, and the environments look like something straight out of Subnautica. There's also a crazy level of detail to our knights, and they all have these Art Deco Bioshock style suits that are completely customizable, and I mean completely. The player can mix and match suit pieces on top of changing their materials, patterns, and colors. It reminds me of Space Marine 2's customization system, which I must have spent at least 100 hours in by now. So, artistry aside, how does the game play? At its core, Tides of Tethys is a roguelike, and each expedition is a separate run. Between expeditions, we can upgrade our base with money and resources we've earned, as well as customize our knights or perform rituals for run-wide modifiers. Seems there's going to be other buildings and functionalities here, but for now, that's all I got to see. Before you launch an expedition, you can decide which knights to bring and equip them with any gear you've scavenged. And this is worth considering as each knight has their own procedurally generated backstory and personality, which will give them different traits that impact their stats. We can also decide which house to recruit from, which will further specialize your knights. When a run begins, our squad is dropped into a procedurally generated map, I guess based on the depth we're exploring. With nothing but a command pod and a general direction, we have to locate any objectives and extract with as much loot as we can carry. Now, they may have been born underwater, but our knights breathe oxygen, and their suits will eventually run out of air if they aren't tethered to our base. If we want to keep breathing, we'll need to construct oxygen generators and solar panels to power them. Most buildings will have to be connected to our main hub, and from what I've seen, there are only 4 slots where structures can be attached. Hopefully we'll see transfer tubes and other base pieces for future levels so players can build out their base and maybe add fortifications like turrets or utilities like medical centers maybe. The game is a bit like Rimworld when it comes to micromanaging your knights. They'll each have their own behavior panel that lets us tweak which tasks they'll undertake, how far away they'll search for those tasks, and even how long they'll wait to go refill their oxygen. Not all these behaviors work correctly, and some of them don't work at all, but it's a good start. Now, as long as you keep up with your knights and what they're doing, it's not too hard to keep yourself well supplied. Weather effects such as shifting tides and sunlight will affect movement or power generation, and some events such as solar flares may even throw a wrench into your plans entirely. Exploration is a slow, steady process of scouting ahead and building oxygen tethers to keep your knights breathing. Now, at first, this loop was very exciting, and I was really eager to try out each new piece of equipment I got, but by the end of the demo, it was starting to become a bit of a slog. Some of the creatures were really weird and freaky looking. The exact kind of thing to make you go, what the hell is that thing? No, what the hell is that? It's not its correct name, even though this species has remained elusive and unidentified so far. Seems out of reach most of the time. There's also these sea mines and environmental hazards like acidic brine pools to worry about, but there's a lot of empty space to cover with very little variation in objectives and enemy types. Unfortunately, the combat isn't much better. Mostly it's a literal punch-out between your knights and whatever tentacle is in the way. Props to these guys for being gutsy enough to punch a sea monster, but the animations are often aiming the wrong direction or overlapping when you get something like a knight punching a crab while sitting down. While I love the visual style of this game, you know how I am about UI. The contrast between the brassy colors of the backdrop and the neon numbers just didn't look right. There's also a fair few typos and bits of UI gore here and there. To make things a bit more user-friendly, I'd recommend having larger fold-out windows for aspects like night behavior. Having a Rimworld-style chart where the player can see what each of their workers is set to do at any given time would make micromanagement way smoother. Fortunately for us, one of the two devs for Tides of Tethys was actually in the chat during our stream, and we got to talk to them about some of these aspects of the game. From what it seems to me, they're actively looking for ways to improve the game, which is great because I love this concept. First of all, it's crazy impressive that this game is being made by a two-man team. What's more, I'm really eager to see the real monsters hiding in the depths, those weird biomes and crazy hazards. If the knights are meant to be canonically expendable, then I want to see an environment that forces me to make sacrifices to succeed. So perhaps the game's threat level needs some tweaking, and there's still a lot of work left to make this game stand out. But I'm really fascinated by this underwater world. I mean, how long have these people lived underwater? If they were aliens, I figured they would have adapted gills, but these guys still need their weirdly shaped diving helmets. What about these wars down in the depths? What kind of crazy structures and insane weapons, horrifying monsters, and forgotten cities might be down there for us to explore? That is what I'm here for. Well, that and the fact that you can tame a giant pet crab and ride it into battle. Your morale should not decay at all while you're riding that giant crab. I'm just gonna be real with you, alright? If I were you, and I got to ride a giant crab, I would never be sad. But anyway, I'm just the voice in your head, so what do you think about Tides of Tethys? Do you think that the roguelike route was a good choice for this title, or would you have preferred a classic RTS? Has a spooky underwater world drawn you in, or do you want to see more tactical depth first? Let's talk down in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, leaving a like helps get the channel through the algorithm and keeps the other knights from pitching my air hose. If you want more, subscribing is the best way to support the channel and keep new content coming your way because I put out new stuff every week. Thanks so much for listening to me today, and you'll be hearing from me again real soon. Uh-oh. Oh! Get it. Punch it. He's fine. Don't even worry about it. That is horrifying.